Derek Carr went there. I'm surprised he went there or stayed there. He's still living in Las Vegas, but he got the invitation to the Pro Bowl games. All three of the original AFC quarterbacks out for a variety of reasons. Derek Carr in. And, hey, to his credit, it's an opportunity to kind of show up and remind everyone I'm still here, throwing the ball around last night, kind of an unofficial pro day workout for teams that may be interested. Peter, this continues to be just a weird, bizarre story because, number one, the Raiders didn't have to give Derek Carr a new contract last year. Number two, the way they structured the contract, they included that escape hatch that was obvious to me when I first started breaking down the numbers. I mean, it's not hiding in some nook or cranny of the deal. It was right there. They have an out if they want to use it, and they're going to use it, apparently. They're going to move on or work out a trade before February 15 when he has $40.4 million come due in salary between this year and part of next year. And we wait. The clock is ticking loudly, Peter, toward February 15.
Mike, explain this to me. I have not studied this contract the way you have, but I guess here is my question. Do you actually think there is some team in the NFL that would do two things? Number one, trade a middle, let's say a third-round draft pick to the Raiders for Derek Carr, and then also pay him $40 million, as soon as the deal is agreed to, or commit to paying him $40 million. Why would a team do that? Team X out there, pick a team, the Jets, Washington, whoever. They didn't agree to the terms of this contract. Why should they have to live by it? And that, to me, is the reason. Look, I'm not positive that Derek Carr is going to be great. And, you would think that to commit $40 million plus some draft capital, on day one to a quarterback, you would say, if we don't think there's a very good chance this guy could lead us to deep into the playoffs, why are we doing this?
And that's a great point. We don't know who would make that commitment, but it is a dual commitment that necessarily reflects, and I've been explaining it this way. If a team is willing to guarantee $40.4 million to Derek Carr, and it's a base salary of $32 this year, and it's the remainder of fully guaranteed salary in 2024. But if you're willing to do that and give the Raiders what they're looking for, the reality is if Derek Carr was on the open market, that team would do more. If that team is willing to take on that contract and give the Raiders draft pick compensation mid-round or higher, then if Derek Carr was just a free agent, he could probably do a better deal. This isn't one of those situations, and I've seen this over the years, where a player has a contract that is so favorable to the team that another team trades for the contract. They want to get the guy before he becomes a free agent. The contract is too good. You don't want to see that contract get ripped up and the player become a free agent. And that's just not the case here. And that's why I've thought all along that when push comes to shove on this, Peter, they're not going to be able to trade Derek Carr. And that sets aside the reality that all they could do is reach an unofficial deal to trade Derek Carr in the middle of March, a deal on which the other side could back away at any time without consequence. Another team could do to Josh McDaniels what Josh McDaniels did to the Colts 5 years ago with no consequence, perfectly within the rules. Sorry, Mark Davis. Woke up this morning and I decided, I was listening to Peter King on PFT Live back on February 3rd, and he made a pretty good point. Why the hell would I want to guarantee $40.4 million sight unseen for Derek Carr? I'm out. Sorry, I know we had an unofficial agreement, but it's not official until the first day of the league year, so I'm out. So that timeline has always been screwy, and I continue to believe that it's pointing toward the Raiders ripping up the contract on Valentine's Day and Derek Carr becoming a free agent with a 5-week head start on the open market.
I think so too, Mike. That makes the most sense to me. And look, I'll tell you one other thing that occurred to me when I was thinking about a team guaranteeing him absolute minimum $40.4 million this year. And then beyond that, obviously, you're not just going to make this a one-year deal, I wouldn't think. So this is the other thing I thought of. What was the storyline last July and August going into the NFL season? Oh my gosh, Derek Carr is in nirvana for quarterbacks. He is with Josh McDaniels, and this is an unbelievable spot for him. Not only is he with Josh McDaniels, but they went out and did exactly what he wanted them to do. They went out, and got him Davante Adams. And so you tell me, Mike, right now, this is almost an unfair question, but you tell me right now, okay, like whoever's fault this was, the fact is that in Derek Carr's last 5 games for the Raiders, he threw 2-1, 2-1, and 3 interceptions. They had that ugly loss, on the Franco Harris day, on Christmas Eve night in Pittsburgh. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, what happens? Derek Carr disappears. I mean, I think this whole thing, if I'm a team, am I saying to myself, I want to be really, really aggressive on a guy who's going to be 32 years old next opening day, who just was in an ideal place. You would think any quarterback in the world would want to be with Josh McDaniels, throwing to Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow. It was perfect. It was perfect. And he basically makes an agreement to stay away for things are so bad that he stays away for the last 2 weeks of the season. And in the first game, some guy who nobody ever heard of plays a better game against the 49ers than Derek Carr played all year. I'm sorry, Mike. There's something wrong with this picture. And that's why I think his best avenue is to be a free agent. And if I were him and I were his agent, I'm not sure I would expect a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Well, and, the bottom line is Derek Carr has a lot more control over this process than I think we've realized. And as time goes by and more starts to come out, the signs are there that Derek Carr is ready to draw the line in the sand and say, I refuse to waive my no-trade clause. I refuse to change anything about my contract. You have to decide. If you keep me around as of February 15, I'm fully guaranteed $40.4 million. You want to squat on me? You want to pull a Marcus Allen on me and say, okay, fine, just sit home or stay on the sidelines and we'll pay you to not play? That's $40.4 million, and Mark Davis is not one of the cash-rich owners in the NFL who can just bat an eye at $40.4 million. So I think when push comes to shove, they're going to move on from him. But they're still going to try to trade him. There's a stubbornness here. Sims and I were talking about this yesterday. He's right. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, coach and GM respectively of the Raiders, are not dumb. They're not dumb, but they're stubborn. And stubborn can make you do dumb things. Here's Ziegler from yesterday talking about the interest that he claims is out there in a trade for Derek Carr.
Derek's a phenomenal player too, and he's a phenomenal human being. And we're gonna obviously we have some dominoes to fall, and some things that we have to look at relative to his situation and our quarterback situation going forward in 23. But there's no position is as important as the quarterback position, and you all know that. Everybody knows that, and so we're going to be putting a lot of work, putting a lot of work in on that front, and kind of seeing how it all plays out here.
Well, I don't need a specific answer, but Have you gotten interest? If I was in this league and I saw what happened to Derek, I'd be calling you, going, Dave, you want to talk a little bit here?
Yeah, and I think here this week at the Senior Bowl, obviously everybody's here, and so this is a good time to have those conversations. But there's going to be people interested in Derek Carr. There's no doubt about that. He's been a good football player in this league for quite some time, and like I said, he's a phenomenal human being, and we'll kind of just see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's going toward February 15, which will be here before we know it. It's not, and this is an example of having a good agent. The deadline that was put into the new contract that Derek Carr signed last year wasn't March 15, March 20, March 30, when the Raiders had to make their decision. It was a month before free agency. So if they do make the decision, and they're forced to make the decision to move on from the $40.4 million, then there's a full month before any of the free agents are available to be signed, where Derek Carr is the only one out there. He's got a month where he can go visit teams and talk to teams. He doesn't have to wait. There is no tampering at issue. They could take him to the scouting combine and walk him around to meet with the teams. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do when you hit the market a month early. That gives him an advantage. And, Peter, this all kind of started to hit full boil earlier this week when it was reported, and has since been confirmed by Carr himself, that the Raiders haven't given Carr and his agent permission to try to work their trade. Well, if you're going to try to control this process, which is what the Raiders are doing, how do you expect Derek Carr to cooperate with you? You're hinging all of this. Hey, Derek, just take a seat. We'll find a trade for you. Just you hang back there and wait. We'll find you a good trade. They still have to convince him to waive his no-trade clause, or maybe take less money, or maybe change the date of when that money becomes due. He said last night he's not changing that date. And I think embedded in that answer, he's also not waiving his no-trade clause, and they're just wasting their time. Because when push comes to shove, again, his attitude is going to be, you got to pay me or you got to cut me.
And that's probably what I would do if I were him too. I just, Mike, I think this probably has something to do with the fact that I think it was the second or third day of Raiders training camp in July, I was in Las Vegas, and I sat in on McDaniels and Carr had a meeting every day, like 20 minutes, in which they went over all of sort of the new things that they wanted to correct, that they were doing, that they thought that they had some questions on, and it was just sort of a clarification meeting. And I walked out of there, and I just thought, man, these guys are really good for each other. Carr is already speaking the McDaniels language. There's clear understanding on both sides. It's great. Now, you're going to have to make a decision. And I'm sure that a team that's looking into it, if you're Joe Douglas of the New York Jets, you're Martin Mayhew of the Washington Commanders, you're Scott Fitterer of the Carolina Panthers, I think less of a chance he would be. But you're anybody, you're Mickey Loomis, okay, and you're looking around. So here's my question. What the hell went wrong? In the 20 games before Josh McDaniels walked onto campus, 20 games, Derek Carr threw for 320 yards or more 8 times. Last season, Derek Carr never threw for 320 yards in a game. And he had Devontae Adams. So I am really stuck on this one, Mike. And they've done a very good job of tamping down any discussion of where this all went south. But it went south. And it went south in a huge way. And the Raiders were out of the playoffs late and all that stuff. And it was a bad season. And, whoever looks into Derek Carr is going to have to feel very good about what happened at the end of this season, because right now it is the great unknown.
When John Gruden became coach of the Raiders again 5 years ago, someone that I trust very much said this isn't going to end well with him and Derek Carr because Derek Carr is going to crumble under this relentless tirade of F-bombs from John Gruden as he demands Derek Carr to suddenly morph into Joe Montana. Gruden backed off. Gruden understood he had to modify his approach or he was going to lose his quarterback. I wonder, Peter, whether or not Josh McDaniels made no concessions, no adjustments, no limitations on the Patriot way, the way that you coach quarterbacks. They coach them hard in the Patriot way. Tom Brady got coached very hard. So that may have been so 4 years after we thought Gruden was going to break Derek Carr, it very well may be that the Patriot way is what got, Josh McDaniels has Tom Brady to compare every other quarterback he ever has on his roster to. And there was something in the makeup of Derek Carr that caused him to conclude this guy is not the one who's going to take us to the top of the mountain, period. So we move on.
The other thing that I wouldn't like right now about the way this matchup was, of these two guys. Think of it, Mike. Here's his last 3 years pre-McDaniels. Completion percentage, 70.4, 67.3, 68.4. This year, 60.8. And so the one thing that if I were a team, the easiest thing in the world to do right now is for teams looking into Derek Carr to say, McDaniels expected him to be Tom Brady. He was unreasonable, the expectations, put too much on his plate, la-di-da-di-da-di-da. Which, Mike, I'm not saying that didn't happen because I don't know what happened. But what would happen if you had, let's say, a coach like Sean Payton? Like, one of the reasons Russell Wilson wanted Sean Payton to be the coach of the Denver Broncos, he knew that his career was teetering on the edge of a cliff. And he knows that he needs to be coached hard and he needs to basically become a ball of clay and say, okay, coach, do with me what you want to do. I think that is Sean Payton's impression going into the job. We'll see if it comes out that way. But my only point is this. There are some coaches who are going to coach you really hard and who are going to be demanding that every week you be willing to learn new stuff and all that. But with those great expectations, also come great expectations for performance. And again, I don't know whose fault it was. And I doubt it was altogether one person's fault. But if I were looking into this, I would not just simply say, McDaniels, he expected him to be Brady. Nobody's going to be Brady. Give us Derek Carr. And you may still come away saying, give us Derek Carr. But I can't believe in all of this that he's faultless.
Oh, and I'm not saying that this is a situation where McDaniels simply soured on Derek Carr because he's not Tom Brady. I'm talking about the way Brady handled hard coaching and the way Carr handled it. And I just suspect that Carr didn't react. Don't know it, but I'm just trying to discern from the circumstantial evidence where this went sideways. I would suspect that Carr maybe didn't react and respond to aggressive coaching the way that Josh McDaniels hopes. And, you've got some guys in the league. You got quarterbacks in the league that don't want to be told how to do their job. I know how to do my job. And then if you freelance a little bit, you don't want to be called out by your coach. You don't want him in your face yelling at you. And you definitely don't want to be in the film room having the coach show some of your lowlights from the week that was and embarrassing you in front of everyone for the dumb decisions that you made or the things you should have done that you didn't do. And that may be part of it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.